What did the earwig say when he fell out of a tree?
I don't know. What did the earwig say when he fell out of a tree?
Here we go!
Here we go.
3 generations of Phillipses get together for tea at Grandma's. Could their genes affect their rate of ageing? Longevity does seem to run in families. But it's easier to study in simpler animals. Nematode worms are particularly compliant as experimental subjects. They breed fast and can be followed over many generations. Normally they live for about a month. But scientists have bred mutants with dramatically longer lifespans. The challenge is to identify the genes responsible.
We really don't know at the moment anything much about ageing, the real fundamental nuts and bolts. And so we've taken a very simple system, and this is an animal that's microscopic. It only has about 959 cells and has a lot fewer genes than we do. And so if we can begin to understand ageing in the nematode, then hopefully that will tell us something about ageing in more complex systems like ourselves.
David Gems is interested in a mutation linked to food metabolism, which also lengthens life. The gene that causes the mutation is called DAF2. Its product has a similar role to insulin in humans.
The original idea was that once you identify the gene, you understand what it is, what it makes, then you should understand what aging is and how aging is controlled.
Gordon Lithgow can image the gene using DNA sequencing. He's purified tiny amounts of DNA from 6 different worms. 3 are mutants, 3 are normal. After a blue rinse, the DNA is put into a gel and connected to 100 volts. The different genes will be swept through by the current at different rates. Now Gordon's ready to image the results.
So where we have a band here, this is where a bit of DNA is inserted into the gene that determines lifespan. So these worms here are long-lived. These are our normal wild-type worms, about 20-day lifespan for these chaps, about 40-day for those.
So these are all variants of DAF2, the gene for insulin signalling. But it turns out that identifying the gene isn't the end of the story.
What DAF2 really is a switch that switches between a short lifespan and a long lifespan. And the way that it does that is through regulating a large number of other genes.
With hundreds of genes acting in concert, things get more complicated. But nematodes aren't the only animals where there seems to be a link between metabolism and lifespan. Laboratory mice tend to age more slowly if they're fed a calorie-restricted diet. The same may or may not be true of people. But calorie restriction is the only known way of lengthening lifespan in mammals. So finding its genetic basis is a kind of holy grail. Could there be a link between calorie restriction and DAF2?
Well, there could be. There are a few parallels there. One is that insulin in humans is something that responds to the amount of glucose in our blood. And the insulin signaling pathway in worms responds to nutrients in the environment. So they seem to be doing similar things.
There are a number of pieces of evidence suggesting that, at least in the worm, that they're actually quite different. So in fact, this is a red herring.
One day, Pam and her family might be able to donate some DNA and be tested for genes that lengthen life. But there is a simpler method. They can look for long-lived relatives.
Then she married him and she became Moore.
Remember 94-year-old Granny Moore? And be glad that they come from a long-lived clan.
Moore and I.